In this video, we're going to explore how to get the element by ID in JavaScript. And this is one of the items that you'll be using quite a lot as well, which is the get element by ID. But how can you get the item or the value from that and maybe show it back here, or how to extract at least the element values in here? So let's start and explore here. For example, here we have the following. We have here a paragraph, and this paragraph contains a value. So we say here value, and we give this also an ID, and the ID name will be p-value, for example. If you want to extract this, or let's say this is a burger, that's the order, and this will be the order value. That's maybe a bit more appropriate. So if we save this and go back here and refresh, you can see here our HTML template shows now the burger value here in the paragraph. However, how can we use that or do something else with that? Well, quite commonly you can do the following here. So I'm going to do this one, and I will give this here a class. And this one class will be order items. Alright, or maybe order item, because it's just the order item. It's just a single item. So what we're going to do here between is the following. In here, we're going to put in our JavaScript. And here we're going to use the get element by ID. So how to do that? First of all, we need to make sure we make a constant, and the constant will be the value of this for simplicity's sake. Basically a constant, this equals, and then we say here document. And why document? Basically you want to search. JavaScript understands that this is a document, so we need to search now in this document. So we say document dot and get element, pay attention to the capitalized letters, by I is capital letter, D. And then in here, we're going to put in the ID value. What is the ID value? Without, I repeat, without hashtag. Do not put the hashtag. No hashtag needed. Just only this one, because here it already says ID. So basically this would be a hashtag. That would make sense. So this is, it would be redundant. It's like get element by ID, ID. It's like double wording. It's not necessary. Now you have here the order value. So we have this one now, but if we do this, we will get basically everything. So let's say here, if I do make a console.log, and then we show here the order value, nothing will happen, or you will see everything related to this paragraph here. Save this, refresh, open up the developer tab, and you can see now here, you will see everything. The console log basically gives you the ID, the paragraph element, the order value or the ID name, the value itself. So basically we're getting everything, and that's not what we want. Well, in this case here, because this is a paragraph, we're not going to get the value, dot value, but we need to get here the text, dot inner text basically. So what we're going to do here is the following. We say here dot inner text. Oh, sorry, we don't have to do it here, but if we do just dot inner text, then if we save this and refresh, now we only get the burger. You can see here now we get only the specific text here, which is correct. That's what we want. So imagine we want to move that. How do we move that? Well, basically here we create a another function, or you don't even need to have a function because we don't want to trigger anything at all. It should be just immediately activated. So we say here the following. So we say here, you make a constant order item equals, or we can even remove that to make just very straightforward. We can probably just remove it. We will say here document dot query selector, and this query selector, then we say here what would be it. This is of course our class, so single quotation for the string and then a dot for the class. Basically the document says go search in the document, or go in the document. Query basically means search for the selector name, and the selector could be the paragraph, the class name, or the ID. However, usually for query selector, use order item or the class name, class with a dot, and then order item. And then we can say here dot inner text equal the order value we have here dot inner text. All right, so So that would mean we just get this here, basically the text, the burger text, what we want to show here. Because remember, if we only show this, we will show the entire paragraph information. That is not what we want. We only want the value. So once we do that, refresh, now you can see we have 2 times burger here. We have the P class order item showing this. Alright, so this is the document get element by ID on a paragraph. But maybe you say, well, wait a minute. I don't have a paragraph. I have a value or an input. And I want from my input box, I want the value extracted. Alright, let's go and explore how to do that. So in this case, let's change this here. Imagine here we don't have this order value here. We have something else. We have an input. And our input is an input type equals text. And we don't need to have this closing text. And we can put in here a value if you want. Maybe there's no value. Or else we can do just a placeholder. And the placeholder attribute will give you like enter a value. Alright. So we got this. And then let's refresh here. Now it's blank. Even the order item cannot even load because of course that's not possible. The inner text of null. Why is the inner text null? Well, simply because this is not anymore inner text, because this is an input and the input will give a value, and the value would be whatever we put in the value here. So if we do this, you can see we have this. But what we want to do here, of course, is let's make this a little bigger. So, alright, what we want to do is once we type in something, it should be eventually shown here. So how can we do this? Well, there are some simple ways to do this, and I'm going to show you the easiest one to do. Alright, we have this here, the order item. This order item should be now done on value. So that's instead of inner text, because there's no inner text, we need to get the value. So we say here, the query selector will be, first of all, we have to make an ID. And let's say this ID is input text. So this part here is now absolutely not possible to work. It doesn't work at all because it's not matching. So this is incorrect stuff or items. This here doesn't exist as well, so we can just basically delete everything. Let's remove all of this and start again from scratch so it's easy to follow. So here, first of all, what we're going to do is we create a constant. The constant will be this name here, and I like to use the constant that will be equal to the ID name so it's easy to find and easy to track. So you know exactly which one are related. If you give it a unique code, it will be tougher. Alright, so we have the constant input text, and then we say here document.getElementById single quotation, and what is the ID name? Well, this is our ID name. Copy this, put it in. Alright, so we're done here. So next what we want to do is we want to make sure that we get the value that we can do. So how can we do this? Well, basically I will show you with the console log, and I use console log a lot. Console log is very useful to quickly check the response. Alright, so we say here input text dot value, not inner text, because this is not anymore inner text because this is not a paragraph or any type of div or other element. This is an input where when this person puts in a value, it's called a value, which makes sense, of course. So if we save this now and refresh, open up our developer tab, you should see now the question marks. Alright, that's correct. And if we would say here hello value or hello value, value, save this, refresh. Alright, so that works. So what we want to do now is, well, we want to make it a function, because what we want to do is we want to make it as dynamic as possible. When we put in the value, we should see here instantly the values here. So what we can do is the following. We'll say here a function, and this function will basically say show value, and then we say here parentheses and open and close curly braces, and then within here we're going to say the following. We'll say here order item, we can say a const order item, but it's not necessary, but we'll just do it for this, so in case you were to reuse it anywhere else, you can use this order item, and then you say here document dot query selector, and the query selector basically means searching within the document, then search for the selector. The selector name will be, of course, this is our class, so we say here dot for the class, and then get this order item. Alright, so once we have this, we can now say here order item dot, and then we can say here inner text equals what exactly? Well, basically we will say equals the input text dot value. Alright, so that makes sense. So you get the value here. And now what we need to do is we need to make sure that we trigger it, that when we type here, it should be shown here immediately every time we type or adjust. So what we can do is the following. We can say here on input equal, and here we put in the function. So the moment we say on input, we'll use the function show value. And once we do that, we can save this now, and then you will see we'll get instantly the values being shown here. So let's refresh here, and now we have this. Alright, see, as you can see, it's on input. And the reason why, you say, well, why doesn't it show immediately? Because we didn't put an input. There's already a default value in here. Right? We can solve this by just saying the following. We can copy this. And basically what we can do then is we can replace this above. And then we say here, we do again this, and then put it here up. So what happens, it will load the original value, what is in here, on the first load, and after that it will start to reload or readjust itself if we adjust the value. So now refresh, you can see now we have that here. Click on this, and then you adjust, then you type, there you are, beautiful. And this is basically the way how you can use it. And with the on input option or attribute, you can really use this instantly and immediately, which solves a lot of issues because this is one of the latest functions that you can use.